Former Immigration Minister Leanne Dalziels is now the Mayor of Christchurch.
We're probably the least cosmopolitan of the cities. You know, I know Christchurch people go up to Auckland and think they've gone to another country, you know, because it's quite different in terms of the scale. But we're starting to see a much more mixed environment. And diversity is good for a city because it means that you don't get stuck. Because you can get awfully stuck if everyone's kind of the same and you've got the same old, same old. And Amana, Ngāi Tuhuriri, and all of the Papatipa Runanga. Ena reo e rau rangatira mā, tēnei te mihi kia koutou, i te kaupaparo te rā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Can I first of all acknowledge and thank our kaikaranga for bringing us into this place, the Christchurch Town Hall, for the inaugural Christchurch City Council meeting for this term, 2019 to 2022. Hadn't thought that far ahead. Can I just also say that I've really truly valued the partnership that we have developed through our Te Hononga Council Papatipu Runanga Standing Committee, but also know that through that we have a really strong and enduring relationship with Te Rongananga o Ngāi Tahu, and the incredible goodwill and willingness to contribute to good decision making for our city is a valuable asset that has no price that you can place upon it. So, and I did ask Kaharoa to make the comment about Rick Toe, who put a challenge to me and to councillors back in 2013. And I think we're at a point where we can now look to find a way of acknowledging in the principles of the treaty, the truth and reconciliation, the acknowledgement of what has occurred, the genuine regret and remorse for what has occurred, and then some way of bringing matters to a conclusion. So that's what I want to achieve in this term. I also want to build on that, the foundation that is our treaty relationship between mana whenua and the people of the treaty, and the firm foundation of the bicultural nation that it represents to rebuild a truly multicultural society. And I look forward to the partnership that has been displayed over difficult times and to building on that as we reach out to the wider community and embrace everyone in the future of our great city. So thank you very much for the welcome today.
They went to work employing local labour and with pick and shovel methods, there being no elaborate tunnelling machinery in those days, such as has been employed more recently in this country on the Kaimai project in the Bay of Plenty. No imported labour like the Italians we imported for the Tongariro power scheme a few years ago. And when you think about it, this was a really tremendous undertaking because at that time, the combined populations of Littleton and Christchurch were no more than 3,000 people.
There have been three phases in this city, three historical phases. There's the pre-contact Ngāi Tahu period. I mean, this place was teeming with Ngāi Tahu people. A lot of travel from the peninsula to other parts of Te Waipounamu and stopping off at Market Square. So that was all pre-contact. So that, for me, that is the first phase of the city. Second phase of the city is when the colonial government arrived and the new settlers arrived and created Christchurch. So in a way they tried to replicate, and in a way you can understand it, they tried to replicate England. They were trying to create a home away from home. And they were trying to surround themselves with the things that made them feel at home. Now, you even look around here, the trees that were planted, the way that the city's been designed, a lot of it is reminiscent of England. And in a way, that was really the post-contact phase of the development of this city. We now have a wonderful challenge and an opportunity now arising out of this earthquake. So for me, we're about to enter the third phase of the development of Christchurch. And it is about returning Ngāi Tahu to the city. It's about returning Ngāi Tahu history, the things that are valued by Ngāi Tahu, the place names, the sites that are really important to us, and relocating them here. And I suppose in a way making them visible, because previously they were invisible. So for me, that's the kind of third phase of the city, and that's why I think it's really exciting as we progress into what I'm terming a post-colonial city. And that is a new Christchurch, post-colonial, global city that acknowledges all of its communities, Ngāi Tahu, the early settlers and their families, and in fact new immigrants. That's the city that we've got to create.
19th century we were colonised. The British, European empires colonised the world, indigenous peoples. 20th century, I think they're starting to understand this, is that the rest of the world decolonised. Now, the 21st century is going to be about peoples, First Nation peoples, indigenising Western institutions to represent their own identities. And it's going to be more than just putting a carving over the hospital entryway. It'll be about incorporating New Zealand values which are really about equity and fairness, aren't they? With Māori values of their relationship to the land and caring for people.
Matapulpuri and Ngāi Tuhuriri played a really pivotal role in ensuring that this place was able to speak to our cultural soul. Even the name of this place speaks to that cultural narrative that has been completely absent from our city. And to see that now embedded, a standalone name, Tūranga, here in Whitireia, you know, the combination of the two names describing the history of Ngāi Tahu coming to the South Island from the North Island, bringing those names and that experience with them. is the draft submission on the Canterbury Regional Council Ngāi Tahu Representation Bill. This is a very short one. I did want to add a copy of the letter that we sent to ECAN last year when they consulted us on the bill. And so if that could just be approved, the draft council submission on the Canterbury Regional Council Ngāi Tahu Representation Bill, including the correspondence that we had with ECAN last year in support. And I'll move that. Do I have a seconder for that? Andrew? Any discussion? I'll put the motion. Oh.
Yeah, not to drag it on, but I won't be supporting it. I just fundamentally believe that one person, one vote. And I think that I still fundamentally, in terms of democracy, that people sitting on either councils or Environment Canterbury should be elected. I know that there'll be disagreement on that, completely respect it, but just sort of being true to myself, I can't support it.
I'll quickly respond, which is essentially that when the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act was passed in 2011 after the earthquakes, Ngāi Tahu was named as a statutory partner, and we could all see the value of having Ngāi Tahu directly represented in terms of all of the strategic relationships that it established. When Environment Canterbury was disestablished as a function of central government, replacing them with commissioners, essentially they included Ngāi Tahu representation, and that was confirmed when it was a joint elected and appointed membership. And this is simply reinstating a really good process that was acknowledged by, cross-party really, over two sets of issues. So I'm very much in favour of this.
Okay, it's fine. So we're going to start with Julia Whaiputi, our first panellist for the evening. And so, kia ora e kare. My quick fire question for you tonight is, what does constitutional transformation look like in Aotearoa?
What does constitutional transformation therefore look like for me in 1 minute? I think that there are some examples of where it has looked good, and it's happened by stealth. And it's happened by stealth because I think our colonial construct and history of New Zealand, which is still breathing today, is built off it's built off white supremacy and racism, and about the true belief that power shouldn't be applied equally. So now, in order to address that, we've seen some of that stuff happen by stealth post Christchurch earthquake. Right now, you've got Ngāi Tahu, the iwi that's in Christchurch, and the Council of Christchurch with equal powers in decision making in anything that affects Christchurch. That's a powerful thing. We've got our Wanganui River has legal identity, and the power there sits with the iwi and hapu there to make decisions with the Crown. You've got in Tūhoe, where Matua's from, in the Urewera, the forest, national forest, having equal powers between Tūhoe and the state. Those are powerful examples of things that are happening where it's equal constitutional power. And I think now is the time, and these are the arguments me and Kitty we're having, now is the time where actually we should be having quite mature conversations about this, and that we could see that implemented. There's probably more things to say, but in order for that to happen, New Zealand becoming a republic, and that we consider a coded constitution, a written constitution with higher powers, of which Te Tiriti is at the top of that. Kia ora.
Ooh, that was bloody, bro.
It's one of the many elements of leadership that you outline in the book, and I could go into them more deeply, but I want to talk about a couple of things I think people are very interested in your opinion on. Gosh, it's awful to skim over the earthquakes this way, and the role again that Ngāi Tahu played in them, in the recovery, but also in reaching out to people straight away, finding out where people were. But one of the things to emerge from that dreadful event was a far stronger partnership between Ngāi Tahu and this Christchurch City Council, and and actually between tangata tiriti and tangata whenua.
Yes.
And there was a survey done actually talking about how people wanted Christchurch and Canterbury rebuilt out of this, and it was a very high figure. I think it was 2/3, 70% said we want a stronger partnership with peoples. Want everything that is rebuilt to reflect the peoples, two peoples, not one. And can you speak to this concept that's emerging of genuine partnership? Can you start first with that, and then we'll talk more. We'll get into the health area that I want to finish with, Tamark. What are you seeing happening that is positive, and what are you seeing happening that is falling short?
Well, I'll go back to where I think the change come. My whole time as the chair of Ngāi Tahu, there were always good relationships at the mayoral level, but there weren't such good relationships at the management level of the council. For me, the turnabout was when Tainui, Raukawa and Te Arawa arrived at Rehua Marae with a group of doctors and a group of nurses as their koha to the Māori community in the aftermath of the earthquake. Tuku Morgan spoke on their behalf and stated that these doctors and nurses were their koha to the Māori community. In a sense, I broke protocol by saying, no, they are for the community. Their job is to work for whoever they come up with. Well, there were some of the senior management of the council were in that meeting when we made that statement. Relationships changed after that, become a lot better. Now, I was one of the ones that was absolutely stunned when we had the come and have your say weekend at the huge amount, and I thought it was slightly more than 70%, who wanted to see both cultures in the rebuild. And for me, that was the catalyst that made the change. Because, you know, it's interesting, when you have a disaster, there's no such thing as colour. You all become equal, you all become victims. And the whole community came together. We brought the Māori wardens in, our rangatahi went out into the community digging up liquefaction, the farmers' army came in, the student army, the whole of the community came together. And it's continued in a very positive manner.
You are officially the Wizard of New Zealand.
Yes, appointed by the Prime Minister by public proclamation.
So where have you been for all these years?
Well, I am hidden very well by my enemies. My enemies say, no wizard here, no, he's left now, he's no longer in Christchurch. They've taken my name off documents, I'm not even mentioned as existing, I've lost my identity, it's all been destroyed by the council. That's bad news. You wouldn't like that happen to you.
That's horrific. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Well, that's the way it is when you get cancelled.
So you've been cancelled?
Yeah, I disappeared. I'm no longer found in anything to do with Tourism New Zealand.
Why not?
Because it embarrasses them. They've got a man here who's not controlled properly. I'm a wild one still. I haven't been castrated yet.
Wow.
When you're cancelled, people around you hate you. They think you're a right-wing or a fascist or a racist or a sexist, whatever the current phrase is, or male or woman hater, all these silly nonsense.
Hey people, are you ready for your Christchurch experience?
Kaore he tangata tau hau I o tau tahi, hewi kotahi, he taone kotahi. Yeah!
We are so proud to be a city of love and social change.